Well, welcome, Don, um, to this conversation. We wanted to share some of your experiences. I know that you have a history with the medical community. See if I can get this right. You're a medical malpractice attorney, and so you're defending doctors, hospitals, nurses when they got in trouble. So you have history, you have awareness of a lot of different medical conditions and situations. And then somehow you found yourself in kind of an awkward position with a diagnosis that nobody seemed to know about. So I wondered if you'd mind sharing some of your story with us.
I'll be happy to, Rachel, and thank you for inviting me. Yes, I'm a retired medical malpractice defense attorney now. I defended doctors for the last roughly 25 years of my career, doctors, nurses, and hospitals, and any other healthcare provider that got sued for medical malpractice. And in 2016, some really strange things started happening to me. I started having a little trouble um, concentrating and keeping my memory focused. I had to read a lot of medical journal articles. I always tried to learn all the medicine I could on any particular case I was defending so I could understand the issues so I could help the doctor and defend his position. I was having trouble doing that. I began to have some personality changes. I began to have a pretty explosive temper, which I've never had before, and began treating people rather rudely, which I was not in the habit of. And I was getting really tired and foggy during the middle of the day. And I described at the time I had lost my sense of taste. I'll discuss that a little bit more later, but put it this way, my taste was not the same. And when I was getting really tired and I just couldn't focus to make my day, I went to see the doctor, and they referred me to a cardiologist for a cardiology exam first, and they determined I needed a pacemaker, and so I got a pacemaker installed, and that helped some. It helped on the fatigue, but I still remained foggy and just continued to get worse. And the other issues remained. And then I began bouncing between cardiologist and neurologist, and I saw a number of both. I live in Tyler, Texas. I went to Dallas. I had an episode where I mysteriously just passed out at a dinner table in New Orleans. We were down there for a family wedding. My wife's family's from New Orleans, and I just passed out, started feeling strange. And I had things like that. And I was put through all sorts of tests, and nobody could really come up with anything. And I was getting frustrated. And ultimately, I became suicidal, which had never, ever been anything I'd had before. And I told my wife and my doctor about it. And good thing my wife did. We're from Texas down here, and we have a weapon or two. And my wife very smartly got the gun out of the house, and it was a good thing because about a week later I was looking for it and probably would have killed myself. And then my longtime internist said, "We got to get Don some help." And I got in the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and within a week I was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. So something I'd never heard of. So it stunned me. I'd had cases where I dealt with Alzheimer's before, and I'd been told during this journey I'd been evaluated by the Southwest Neurologic Institute in Dallas, and they told me I didn't have Alzheimer's, and I really thought that meant I didn't have dementia. But I learned that there are other dementias, and one of them is Lewy body dementia. In fact, it's the second most common form of neurodegenerative brain disease behind Alzheimer's. So it's not uncommon. In fact, it's some of the doctors refer to it as the most common disease that nobody's ever heard of. And so after a while of studying, I'm one of the once I found out what I had, the doctor knew Dr. Notman knew I was an inquisitive mind, having defended doctors for so long. He told me to stop and buy the bookstore at the Mayo Clinic and buy the Mayo Clinic book on Alzheimer's, had a chapter on Lewy body dementia. And I bought that book, and I started collecting the articles for the footnotes, the medical journal articles, and read all that. And as that developed and I began to understand a little bit more and how it fit into my condition, I began to really having desire to talk and interact with somebody on the journey, because I'd never known anybody that had the disease. And luckily, I was referred to the Lewy Body Dementia Association by my Dr. Notman at the Mayo Clinic, and I contacted them, and ultimately I was able to speak with a wonderful gentleman, Robert Bowles, and he was sort of, I call him that, he was their informal spokesperson at the time, and what he did was amazing. He's just a wonderful man, and I got to talk to him, and I learned a lot about his perspective on how to deal with the disease, how to go forward, how to try to live life positively, and to get a purpose and meaning. And so I did those things, which is sort of what he was doing, was focusing on education. And I've embarked on those efforts, and I got to meet Robert and when we were both speaking at the International Lewy Body Dementia Medical Conference a few years ago in Las Vegas, and our friendship budded there as well. And so he's just a remarkable man, remarkable inspiration for me. And I attribute him as my mentor, sort of. He may not know that, but he inspired me to want to spread the word, so to speak. And me having dealt with doctors so much, I really like to focus on medical communities, because the medical community, I'd seen 7 neurologists before I was seen at the Mayo Clinic before I got diagnosed. And that is not unusual occurrence. So, and I found out, that my taste situation was that I was having taste hallucinations. We can have hallucinations of all of our senses, and usually people have visual hallucinations. I was having taste hallucinations early, and still do to this day, and ultimately then did develop visual hallucinations, as well as smell hallucinations and hearing hallucinations. I've experienced all those now. The only one of the hallucinations I haven't experienced is the touch one, where you feel like something's crawling on you, or somebody's touching you or something, and they aren't. I haven't experienced that. So, but I've had a typical progression of symptoms as I've gone along, and there's no treatment or cure for the disease, but we can treat the symptoms, and we have very good doctors who are very well trained on how to try and treat it. And one thing sort of unique about Lewy body dementia is its vast fluctuations in your cognitive abilities, day to day, or even within the day. I tend to either have good days or bad days. And had terrible sleep. Nobody had asked me about my sleep until I got to the Mayo Clinic. And of course, I had REM sleep behavior disorder for 20 or 30 years before I was diagnosed. Didn't know what it was. Certainly didn't know it had anything to do with Lewy body dementia, because I didn't know what Lewy body dementia was. So when nobody asked me about it, I didn't know to mention anything about it. So anyway, I've been sleeping better through the consultation with a neurologist who specializes in sleep disorders, and all the medicines that help cognition, and so I'm doing fairly good now. I went through a period during the first COVID, where I was in a bad way, and my antidepressant medication stopped working, and it just went really downhill. I gained about 60 pounds. I've lost about 50 of that already. And so this thing fluctuates. The medicines tend to work a while, and then they stop working, and you have to find something else that works. And that's sort of my experience with the disease thus far. I still I'm feeling good now. I feel like I'm in a good place. I'm sleeping better. more cognitively. I'm having more good days cognitively than bad. And for a while there, I was having more bad than good. I do still have my bad days, or some days I wake up and I don't really know who that woman is in bed next to me. And we've only been married, coming up on 47 years. So probably ought to know that person. But sometimes I have a problem remembering those things and being so foggy that I can't. And they still happen, but they are happening less now than they were when I was in a bad way, I call it.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to help us spread TEEPS's positive approach message around the world. And don't forget to click the bell to get notified when new videos are posted.